we just saw this amazing movie, and congratulations, Ejivan and Puer, on the story that you're telling, and I think it's helping galvanize support. I've seen evidence of that when I've been having conversations about it with governments, donors, company. It's clearly resonating. It kind of wildly exceeded my expectations. So congratulations to you and the other filmmakers. I wanted to say we've got a great group here, and let me just briefly introduce them. So Pure Tembe, as you saw her story, but just to say a little more, she's the Secretary of the Indigenous Peoples for the state of Pará. She's a member of the executive branch of the Union of Indigenous Women of the Brazilian Amazon, and the co-founder of ANMIGA, which is the National Association of Indigenous Women Warriors. And you saw her work. Ejivan Guajajara, he's an indigenous filmmaker and activist, which is, I think, something that's spreading, and it's wonderful to see that indigenous people are telling their own story. And I think this film is a powerful example of that. Finally, Andre Vasconcelos, he's the global engagement lead at Trace, Global Canopy Supply Chain Mapping Initiative in partnership with the Stockholm Environment Institute. He has lots of experience. He has a degree in ecology from Universidade Estadual Paulista, and also a degree from the University of Oxford. So let's dive in. Let me ask you first. We're here at this big climate summit. I think since Glasgow, we've seen nature at the top of the agenda. That's really welcome. One of the things that happened here is that Marina Silva proposed the creation of a $250 billion forest fund for conservation. The movie talked about the need to invest. Could you talk about how indigenous people are more and more leading the charge for conservation?
Boa noite a todos e a todas. Obrigada pelo tempo de vocês dentro de um universo que tem aqui da COP. Todo mundo é muito ocupado, todo mundo tem várias agendas. E é difícil às vezes a gente conseguir ficar uma hora de tempo, né, para acompanhar, mas agradecemos muito, do fundo do coração, cada um que está sentado aqui. Então, assistindo o nosso trabalho, é um trabalho que a gente faz todos os dias, que a gente faz historicamente. O que a gente faz, a gente também faz para vocês, para proteger para vocês. Então, esse é o nosso desafio, o desafio de assegurar a questão ambiental. O desafio para que a gente possa amenizar esses impactos ambientais. E às vezes pagamos com as nossas próprias vidas. Mas a gente segue lutando porque se faz necessário.
That's great. Ejivan, it's been such a privilege to get to know you as you've been working on this film. We're so happy to host you at our house in Washington, D.C. as we together brought the message of the film to the government, to the media, to a broader audience. I'm curious if you could reflect personally on what you have learned as in this film and what your hopes are for indigenous people to get involved in campaigns and filmmaking.
Então, sou Edivan Guajajara, sou indígena do povo Guajajara do estado do Maranhão.
I'm Edivan Guajajara, indigenous from the Guajajara people in
Então, eu vim do território Araribóia.
I come from the Araribóia territory.
É um território que tem os povos indígenas Guarajara e também existe os povos isolados que não têm contato.
The territory that has the Guajajara people and also some isolated people who have not been contacted.
E eu, como indígena, filmmaker, fotógrafo,
As an indigenous filmmaker and photographer,
eu poderia, né, de ter essa oportunidade de contar a nossa própria história.
I could not miss the opportunity to tell our own story.
Então, é uma luta que nós fazemos, como o Pui menciona, é uma luta diária dos povos indígenas para fazer a defesa do território.
And as Puri said, this is a daily struggle to protect the territory.
E essa defesa que muitas vezes custa a vida dos povos indígenas por fazer uma defesa que é para todo mundo.
This defense that sometimes costs indigenous lives and doing a defense that it's for everyone.
E esse documentário Somos Guardiões não é apenas só mais um filme que vem para assistir, é algo mais além do que isso.
And the documentary We Are Guardians is just not, it's not just a movie for you to watch. This is about our lives.
Esse filme, a gente quer passar para o mundo, as pessoas se sensibilizarem do que está acontecendo, do que a gente passa para defender a nossa vida, defender o território para toda a humanidade.
We want to sensitize the world about what happens to us when we're defending the forests.
E eu sempre falo nos meus comentários que a Amazônia é como se fosse um órgão que está se acabando e que o último órgão desse planeta é o nosso coração.
I always say that the Amazon is like a body and the last organ is the heart and the heart is the rainforest and
Então,
it's ending.
Se esse coração parar ou se a Amazônia não existir, acabou a vida no mundo.
If the heart stops, there's no life in the world.
Então, através desse filme, a gente está tentando conectar as pessoas, os seres humanos, pessoas que têm poderes, para assistir, sensibilizar e dar apoio aos guardiões, dar apoio às pessoas que vivem, que fazem a proteção
So
territorial.
we're trying to connect with people, with funders, with people who can actually help and support the guardians in this work to protect the territory.
Great, thank you. Andre, we've seen a really big announcement that's relevant to this work. I mean, during the movie, as the names of those territories that were being invaded came up, it spoke to me a lot because in the monitoring work, we've drawn a lot on Trace's work in this. You know, we have seen companies like Carrefour and Casino sourcing from JBS and others that are in those indigenous territories, clearing the land, pushing the people out, and establishing cattle ranches and soy plantations. At the same time, we are seeing some progress from some of these companies from the government. Since President Lula came into office, we've seen a decline of 50% in Amazon deforestation, more to do. We have seen some uptick in Cerrado. We had a big announcement here in Dubai the other day where the governor of Pará announced, with the support of the Bezos Earth Fund and others, and an initiative that you're involved in, that they're going to trace all of the cattle in Pará by 2026. This would be a big step forward because, you know, right now the excuse for not fighting deforestation from the cattle companies is, oh, we don't know where they were at. How excited should we be about this new initiative? And is it something that could be spread quickly to other parts of Brazil and South America?
Sure. Primeiro, só dizer, muito bom estar aqui com vocês. Obrigado por poder ter a oportunidade
It's
de falar
very
com
good to be
vocês.
here with you. It's great to have the opportunity to speak with you today.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, before I jump into your question, I just wanted to mention something that Edvan just said, which is about connecting, right? Connecting the people, connecting the funders, connecting everything for us to make an impact. And that's exactly what we do in Global Canopy and in Trace, is connecting how this deforestation is actually connected to the markets, to the finance flows. And talking about beef or cattle ranching, which is a large, a main driver of deforestation in the state of Pará, in the state of Maranhão. What we looked in our data, actually in Trace data, that the second importing market of the cattle produced in Maranhão next to the Araribóia indigenous lands is actually come to the UAE here. So it could be even in our meat here, that deforestation, that human rights issues. So that's about the connection. How we understand, how we bring transparency for us to connect how finance, how markets, how these companies are actually connected. So the players, the markets, do have a huge role to contribute, and they have to do more and more. We are not seeing enough in terms of their actions. In the case of the Pará, the new announcements, it is a step forward. Traceability is the first step, or transparency and traceability is the first step to understand to what extent this production is connected to deforestation or not. They are now thinking about individual traceability system, which will take time. It is a good step, but it will take time. So in the meantime, we need to connect data sets like CAR, like GTA in Brazil, to have traceability systems, at a jurisdiction level, while we don't have the individual traceability level. So it is a step forward. It can be replicated, but it will take time. It will need funding. It will need lots of work.
Thank you. Queer, you said something beautiful in the movie. We need to reforest people's minds. I think that's true in general, but when it comes to the large meat companies that are driving deforestation, what is your message to them? How do we reforest their minds? How do we convince them of what President Lula said during his inauguration, that agriculture can grow without destroying a single acre of forest? How do we reforest the minds of the executives who are making these decisions?
Olha, acho que a mensagem que eu deixaria
I think the message that I would leave
é que se eles não pensarem para a família deles,
that if they don't think about their families,
se eles não olharem para dentro de si, para dentro de casa,
if they don't look inside themselves, inside their homes,
eles não vão conseguir olhar para quem está para fora.
they're not going to be able to look to outside.
É preciso ter essa sensibilidade, olhar, dá para a gente evoluir, dá para pensar esse desenvolvimento que é tanto falado.
Need to have the sensibility to look, to be able to evolve and talk about this development that is people talk about so much.
Dá para desenvolver reflorestando.
We can develop reforesting.
E reflorestar é reflorestar as mentes. É mudar a visão, a concepção de tanto. Porque não é justo uns ter muitos e outros ter poucos.
And to reforest is to reforest the minds of people. It is not fair for some people to have so much and for most people to have nothing.
Juvan, I'm curious what reaction to the film that you've seen from Brazilian indigenous communities. How is this movie affecting their perspective?
Então, a minha participação nesse filme,
My participation in this movie,
eu venho quebrando paradigmas no sentido de que o indígena também é capaz de fazer grandes produções.
I come breaking paradigms, showing that indigenous are also able to do big productions.
E hoje, por exemplo, eu recebo mensagens de pessoas de indígenas que estão no território que se espelham no trabalho que eu fiz.
And today I receive messages from indigenous that are in the territory and that are mirroring in the work that I did and that are inspired by the work that I did.
Então eu fico muito feliz de eu estar fazendo isso e também fortalecendo as outras lideranças, outras pessoas, outras indígenas, eles também são capazes de fazer grandes produções de filme, de estar em grandes empresas de cinema no Brasil ou fora do Brasil.
So I'm happy that I not only been doing this, but also in the process inspiring other people to know that they can also do big productions, be in big film companies, participate in bigger projects.
Então, minha participação é de quebrar o paradigma e dizer que o indígena também é capaz de fazer filme. O indígena também.
Breaking paradigms, and I want to say indigenous people are also capable of doing movies, making movies.
As pessoas têm que acreditar que indígena também faz filme.
People need to believe that indigenous people also make movies.
Right. Thank you. Andre, last question from me, and then I'm going to take two questions from the audience. We hear all the time that indigenous peoples are the best protectors of the rainforest. I think we've seen a lot of evidence, and it's so inspiring to see the risk that they're taking. And I think the fact that they're willing to put their bodies on the line, their lives on the line, is actually a reason why they've been so successful in defending their territories. Sometimes, tragically, defenders are killed, but it also is working. At the same time, one of the things that we see is that there's contempt, there's racism from big companies that are involved in deforestation, sometimes from government policymakers. When you look globally, what needs to be done to make sure that indigenous people's voices and the voice of the forest more broadly is at the table when decisions are being made?
Well, I think what needs to be done is exactly what they are doing. I mean, this movie here in front of us, showing to everyone what are the challenges that they face, the threatening, the life threatening, in the daily lives. So bringing, having them here to speak themselves. I mean, to show the challenges, everything that they can do to protect the forest. I think in the movie, there was that scene showing the satellite images of many indigenous lands, showing how agriculture, how deforestation is crunching, to all the sides. So that's just a beautiful picture to see how indigenous land is super well protected, or keeping the forest standing while all the outside is actually, being completely destroyed and deforested. So I would say just simply more movies. We need more of you. We need more movies, really.
More movies with campaigns associated with them. So it's not just sort of giving you a sense of the problem, but actually presenting a solution that people can get involved in. I'd love to take two questions from the audience. If you want to raise your hand. Yes, sir. Please say who you are and yeah.
Climate intelligence students. Firstly, it's a really beautiful and powerful movie, and thank you very much. Sorry, I'll say that as the microphone as well, but nothing's happening. Oh, there we go. A really beautiful and powerful movie, and thank you very much. But I also we've seen headlines since President Lula was elected that the rate of deforestation has fallen sharply. I just wondered, how does it feel that way on the ground for the Guardians? Has life changed? Has it got any safer for the Guardians on the ground in the areas where they're working?
Então, com a mudança do governo, né, é de fato que teve-se mudança. Não é o presidente Lula que em 4 anos vai mudar o que vem sendo feito durante séculos nos territórios indígenas, mas
with the change of the government, we have seen change. It's not that President Lula will change everything that needs to be changed, or we've been doing this work regardless and despite the president.
Então, sempre eu falo nos meus discursos que os povos indígenas sempre existiram.
We've always existed. Indigenous people have always existed.
Então, pelo fato do governo Lula ser, de fato tem, né, significado, uma importância muito,
It has a good meaning that Lula is the president
por ter criado o Ministério dos
for,
Povos
for
Indígenas, que também
creating
foi
the Minister of
importante.
Indigenous People. It's really important.
Algumas secretarias nos estados.
Some secretaries for the states.
Isso é um fato positivo,
This is
né?
positive.
Teve, claro, né, um avanço menos nos territórios indígenas com relação ao desmatamento.
It has been, we've seen the impact of that result in the territory.
Excellent. One more question. Nikki?
Thank you. I'm Nikki Mardas. I'm a colleague of Andre from Global Canopy. I just wanted to say, firstly, a huge thank you. This was incredibly powerful. Your leadership is extremely inspiring. And thank you for the work you're doing for us all. And Ejivan, the same.
Uhum.
I want to ask Ejivan, in making this film, you treated everyone with great compassion, I thought, in the movie, including people who are causing harm. And that was really helpful to understand the different dimensions of the problem. And so I wondered what you've learned from making this film and how you would change your campaigning now with what you've learned, and what lesson can you give us to do better campaigns?
Great question.
Mas a pergunta foi para mim, né? Cara, é uma pergunta bem complexa que não tem
It's a very complex
resposta
question.
definitiva para isso.
A definitive answer to that.
Mas de fato é que o filme conta a história de uma maneira que são a realidade de cada povo.
So the fact is that the movie tells the story of each one of the people.
A realidade do povo indígena que luta para a sobrevivência.
Reality of indigenous people fighting for survival.
E a realidade dos madeireiros que também estão ali em busca da sua própria sobrevivência.
The reality of the loggers that are also looking for their survival.
Mas uma sobrevivência de uma forma errada, né? Que não tem oportunidades, não tiveram oportunidade de fazer.
A survival in a wrong way because they haven't had the opportunity to do it differently.
E o Tadeu, que é um grande, né, tem um território que está sendo invadido.
Tadeu is also doesn't show here in this part of the movie, but he also has a massive territory that is being invaded.
Mas é contar a história real de cada povo, de cada realidade.
Show the reality of each one of the sides of the story. I can also add that the other directors sat the other day to discuss what about the loggers? How can we help them? Because they became friends, just sitting with them and doing this movie and spending months with them. And some of the loggers have reached out to them saying that, we want to get out of this life. How can you help? How can we do this? So it's a question we don't have an answer to yet, but we are looking into it.
If I may just add something, I was reflecting exactly like that. I think we advanced a lot in the terms of the terminology and concepts of just transition when we talk about, phasing down, phasing out fuel, fossil fuel. But when it comes to deforestation, this is also an important concept for us to have, right? How can we think about these communities also? How can we include them into other systems that are keeping the forest standing rather than deforesting? So just to bring this reflection as well.
Yeah. Well, if I might wrap up, I think one of the challenges is reforesting the mind, but to actually make reforestation happen, ultimately, we have to make trees worth more alive than dead. We have to make the ecosystem and the animals that live in them worth more alive than dead. And that means large-scale finance. It was so great to see Brazil taking the lead on an ambitious proposal for hundreds of billions of dollars of forest finance. I think it also means changing the commercial incentives so that meat companies are channeling development onto degraded land instead of onto intact ecosystems, and ultimately shifting to way more sustainable forms of protein production. And then finally, I mean, I think one of the things that comes through in the movie is indigenous communities who rely on the forest do not want industrial agriculture to wipe out the ecosystems that their cultures have depended on for thousands of years. And so how do you create the resources and the training and the support for guardians like you who are defending it? I think that's the key challenge to really change the balance and continue to change the balance. So thank you all for coming. Please get involved and support We Are Guardians on their website. I hope you follow Mighty Earth as well, but really this is a great project to support. We are all pulling for you here as you've stepped up to take leadership of the indigenous delegation that's for the Brazilian government, and to be a voice for forests, not just for them, but frankly for people all over the world, given Brazil's leadership role in that. So please keep it up. And thank you. We have a reception now, so because it's halfway through COP, we've all been working very hard. I think it's time to celebrate and enjoy. And I know that our friends at We Are Guardians have the best ability to party of any partners we've ever had. So I can't wait to experience it in person. Thank you all very much. Please give them a huge round of applause. Thank you.
Muito obrigada.
Thank you so much.
E a gente segue. Vocês também são multiplicadores. Vocês também são guardiões.
You are also guardians. You are also multipliers.